What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Bettin N Boozin here on the HHH Racing Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Roscoe, and after an unbelievable day for us betting-wise at Kentucky Downs, we look to keep the hot streak going as we move over to Colonial Downs with Old Dominion Derby Day on Saturday. It's an all stakes pick six, so a very good sequence to cover for you guys tonight. Welcome in, everyone. Thank you guys all so much for joining the show. I greatly appreciate it. If you guys are enjoying the podcast tonight, please go down below the video player, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. We would greatly appreciate it because not only is it the best way to help out our channel and completely free, but those likes will help push this podcast and others out into the YouTube algorithm to hopefully bring more horse players to the HHH Racing Podcast. And of course, for that, we thank you. If you subscribe and hit that notification bell, you will as well always be notified whenever we either post a new podcast or go live with one during the week. So of course, again, for that, we thank you. You can see scrolling on the bottom of the screen right now, our normal podcast schedule for every single week that we cover here on the HHH Racing Podcast. The first podcast of the week is right here with Bettin N Boozin on Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. And then it goes to Picks and Ponies on Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern with Howard, Pete, and Paul, and of course, Pacific Horse Players throughout the entirety of the Del Mar meet, which I believe ends this weekend, if I'm not mistaken. I can bring Noah on here in a little bit to talk about that, but their show this week will be at Thursday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and of course, once Del Mar ends, they will go back to their normal scheduled time of Tuesday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. I see a bunch of people in the chat already. If you guys are new or returning and just haven't commented in the live chat right here on YouTube, on the bottom right hand side of the screen, you can put anything you want in the live chat. If you guys have looked at these races already or have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to put them in to the live chat and we read every single one. So please, we would love to have the interaction. We greatly appreciate it. As I said, we're covering 6 races tonight, not 5. So some of these races might also be a little bit abbreviated to how normally very in-depth we take these races. They'll still be in-depth analysis, but again, we will maybe go through our top 3 a little bit quicker than usual to make sure we get through the all allotted 6 races in the normal time frame of these podcasts. And you can find these podcasts, of course, on YouTube, but you can also find them in audio form, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor. So if you guys are more of audio listeners, please go rate, review, and subscribe over there. We also have TikTok and Instagram at Bettin N Boozin Podcast. I'll be posting a bunch of stuff from Kentucky Downs this Saturday, so would love to have you guys follow us over there, again, at Bettin N Boozin Podcast on both TikTok and Instagram. Of course, we have our normal power picks that we give out every single Saturday, and it's all done through Patreon, www.patreon.com/HHH Racing Podcast. The link for that is also in the description below if you don't want to type that out, but it's one of the most affordable and profitable tip sheets on all of YouTube for 4.5 years running now. 917 total price plays or spot plays given out with a $2.10 all-time ROI. Anything over $2 is in the profit, guys. So again, it's only $5 a week, and that's way less than a lot of other tip sheets are given out. It's billed by monthly, so it's $21.60 per month on Patreon. So if that interests you at all, again, patreon.com/HHH Racing Podcast. The link is also in the description below. And if you want to look at previous editions of these power picks before you buy them, or you just want to learn more about the podcast, please go to HHH Racing Podcast.com. Guys, Patrick will be attending. His basketball season starts ramping up here. He's attending a referee meeting, so unfortunately he won't be able to be with us, but look at that. It comes all full circle, my friend. And I guess we bring in the Kentucky Downs crew for this weekend as Noah Maher joins me, as it's going to be us two covering the Colonial Downs pick 6. Noah, what's up, my friend?
Nothing much. Just trying to ride the hot hand that you've kind of proposed last week. I know we're going to try to keep that going, especially at Kentucky Downs. But why not do it in New Kent, Virginia?
There's nothing wrong with that. I'll tell you that. Yeah, I mean, we have to talk about that for at least a little bit. And I'm not one to just go on about how fantastic my picking is, because a lot of the time, realistically, just like everyone else, it is not that good all the time. But I just, especially the thing that I was laughing at, Noah, and I was laughing this on screen because we did the Weekend Warrior show for the Pacific Classic, which you and I were both on. Of all tracks to have a day like that and to give out, obviously, the best part is we gave it out live here on the podcast, was the fact that it was Kentucky Downs, one of the notoriously super hard tracks throughout the entire year where anything can happen. The big races that, you know, I ended up picking were very formful. We had number 7 Flatten the Curve, who won at 2-1, which I said anything over 7-5 was good. The fact that he was not the favorite and Limited Liability was again the favorite is unbelievable. He only won by half the stretch. And then we gave out that double late with Wimbledon Hawkeye, who Noah and Patrick both had on top. That was kind of like the consensus pick of the day for the podcast. I believe he went off at 5-2 or 2-1. I think it was 2-1 actually. But I also gave out the double cold from Wimbledon Hawkeye to Special One, which you and I both liked, and we liked a lot on the show. So just everything worked out. That double ended up paying 12-1. I hit it for, I think, $20 or $25. So I made out perfectly fine on that day. And of course, as we're going to Kentucky Downs this Saturday, we look to keep it going, my friend.
Yeah, it was a great day for you. And you mentioned all the similar picks that I had, and I kind of screwed up because when we were on the show around this time last week, I was like, you know what, I'm going to bet the shit out of Howard Wolowitz. And
yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, I mean, you're in a line, couldn't quite get to what was that, Bear River, the Keith Desormeaux horse who won again at like 20-1. But it's funny you say that because I had some of the other horses that I liked and you liked as well. Just didn't quite bet right.
Yeah.
And, you know, we echo those sentiments all the time. Betting is basically just as important, if not more important, than handicapping. So just one of those days, but we're going to turn it around right here.
No, and honestly, those are the worst days too, is because it seems like everything you don't bet. Because again, we try to preach patience on this show. You know, you play your biggest plays the most. Noah's, like I said, unfortunately was Howard Wolowitz, who, by the way, was by far the best horse in that race. You know, he played Howard Wolowitz the most, ended up just losing by a half length, whatever it was. And my best play ended up working out. It's just the way it is. But those are the worst days when you have, you know, really good picking days, but you feel like your biggest opinions are in other races, and then you end up winning the other races that you didn't bet. So it's always how it goes. And of course, we try to be as open as possible. Great days happen, which is fantastic. But I've had some just like everyone else, we've had some pretty bad days in the past. But of course, live on air, it's always nice to have one of those good days, especially when it had over 1,500 views, which we greatly appreciate all the support from you guys last week on the Kentucky Downs action. But Noah, let's not waste any more time. Of course, we got Nectar of the Gods right here. It can't be betting without the boozing. So cheers to everybody out there. If you have a drink with you, and let's get it going right away. As again, we have 6 races to talk about here today. Katie, I saw your comment here. Where's the link to the Instagram? Again, you can just type in instagram.com/Bettin N Boozin podcast and it will come up. But I just posted that link in the chat, and I'll get the TikTok link for you as well. I think it's just tiktok.com/ and the @ Bettin N Boozin podcast, which I just posted in there as well. I greatly appreciate it. Noah, let's get moving on this sequence. Again, as I said, we're covering a pick 6 instead of a pick 5, and it starts with a nice 2-year-old race in the Kitten's Joy, 125,000 on the line, a mile and a 16th on the turf. And you know this is my type of sequence, Noah. All turf, all the time. Starting off with those 2-year-olds, draws a field of 7, and one that I've taken notice to for other reasons, of course, but it is the morning line favorite with the number 7, Jutland. Paco Lopez hops aboard for Kelsey Danner and John of the MBS stable, 2-1 on the morning line. Second choice is the number 5, JJ Gray. Emmanuel Esquivel ships over to Colonial. Kenny McPeak trains 5-2 on the morning line. Second choice. Your third choice is the number 4, Kid Charlemagne, for Kendrick Carmouche, who's coming down there to ride. And Virginia, with Jonathan Thomas shipping a bunch of horses over here from his West Coast standpoint over the summer. 7-2 is the third choice on the morning line. And Noah, you and I are both putting it's very based, my friend. Not on top, we do have the same top 3 in here. You are going with the second choice, number 5, JJ Gray. I am chalking out in this one, going with the number 7, Jutland. Noah, the number 5, JJ Gray, who's also cross-entered into Kentucky Downs, so that is something to keep in mind for everybody out there. However, he has been working at Colonial. You'd imagine that he would go in this spot versus Kentucky Downs, but of course, money does talk at the end of the day. But this one was a main optional runner first time out of Colonial, but did so very visually impressive.
Yeah, he was pretty good. And to your point, Kyle, I think the connections have a pretty interesting choice to make on their hands. I know the race that they're entered at Kentucky Downs, I want to say it's either like the juvenile mile or the juvenile million, whatever it is, it's worth $1 million. And I think he's either 8 to 1 or 10 to 1. So the question that they're going to ask themselves is, do they want a 10% chance of a part of $1 million purse, or do they want about a 40 or 45% chance of what is this, 150,000 or 125,000?
Yeah.
But with that question comes the fact that they get to run in their backyard, and he's already won here, and he did it impressively. He was 4 to 5 that day, and I'm not quite sure what the rest of the field was in behind him, but I thought the way he did it was pretty impressively. He was kind of sitting just off the pace. There were 2 horses down the backside that actually made kind of a middle move and put him into a weird spot. But Manny Esquivel didn't panic. 2-year-old didn't panic, which you love to see, especially going out for the first time and first asking. And then at the top of the stretch, kind of tipped out 3 wide, ran down No I Dose, who I don't believe has come back yet. And like I said, I'm not sure if that field was particularly great, but he was 2 clear of him. Second place finisher was 6 clear of the rest. So we always talk about you can only beat who's in front of you. I thought it was pretty professional. Been working forward since then. And just kind of seems like a logical spot. I think 5-2 is a fair price.
I agree with you completely. And he's been working very well again at Colonial, where he's been training basically the entire time. And they kept him there after he ran where they shipped him in from Churchill. So to me, I agree with you, Noah. I think he'll run here. And if he does, he'll definitely be one of the main contenders in this spot. I have him second. There's absolutely nothing wrong. I showed the time form where it actually predicts a fast pace. With these 2-year-olds, you never know what you're going to get. They actually have Kids Charlemagne, the one on top, and he was quick first. This is Jonathan Thomas, a really interesting switch up from dirt to turf, and of course, this one is also cross-entered, so keep that in mind as well. As this one's cross-entered. Actually, no, it was today. Did he run today, Noah?
He was scratched today, which I thought was interesting because he was entered in a dirt race. What was that, race 3? That was a dirt race. Now they're switching him to turf. I honestly had no idea what to do with him because he's probably the speed of the speed, but he also has 0 turf breeding.
Correct.
So I'm not quite sure. He kind of seems like one we're going to want to watch the board, especially with a runner from the Thomas barn.
I completely agree with you. And the fact that Carmouche hops aboard this horse could definitely be telling, but basically a whole new look for this horse in this race. And at 7-2, I'd be willing to look elsewhere, even if it is to the 2 favorites underneath him. Casa Cielo's really quick. Empire of Glory's quick. So there's a bunch of other, and JJ Gray wasn't slow himself out of the gate. So that's exactly why I'm actually going with Jutland on top. Last race in the Soar Free was really weird. Like, he was way far back, and that was going shorter than what he did in the back running at Indiana that he did at 7.5. Switched to 6.5 on a really weird turf course that Woodbine is. I'm going to basically treat that as a stepping stone into this race. Kelsey is really known for campaigning her horses up at Woodbine, but is always stabled in Kentucky, as you can see by the works down on the Tapeta Turfway Park. Colonial, she ships to Colonial all the time. You can see 3 for 15, but also 10 for 15 in the money. Paco Lopez hops aboard, who actually has started to ride for Kelsey more and more as she's been shipping to Virginia and other places like that. Puts the blinkers on as well. Just a bunch of different things that are really looking for me that this is the good time to catch Jutland, even though he's going to be 2 to 1, 5 to 2, somewhere in there. I still feel like that's a decent, and this is actually a homebred for NBS stable, which they don't do very often. They've been getting into more and more, but you don't really see NBS home breeding. So the fact that this one is a homebred and is looking for a stakes company is very, very intriguing for the number 7 Jutland. So I'm going to go there. And Kelsey, as you can see on the bottom of the screen, she does well with 2-year-olds, but she also does well with equipment changes. So the number 7 Jutland's where I'm going to go in this race. Noah, the only other one we have is Casa Cielo, who's been running in that Indiana race that I actually just talked about with Jutland, and then ran back last time at Colonial, won very well and on the lead. And honestly, if anything, that for me, if the pace does heat up, that only flatters Jutland's form, in my opinion.
Yeah, it could. It just seems like he's one that I feel like, regardless of what happens, whether the 4 kind of goes or if the 4 doesn't go and actually doesn't even run, he seems like he's going to get a pretty good trip regardless. Now, I will say, I thought his second effort was much improved from his first effort because he was just kind of lollygagging around. Jutland kind of flew by him down at Indy, and then last time was super professional, especially early on in the race. Just broke as alertly as you can. And Arrieta really didn't ask him much to get to the lead, which is kind of why I think if they need him to stock, he maybe can. The problem is he's very, very one pace from what I've seen from him so far. And if the 4 does press him, that could kind of be the fly in his ointment. But like I said, there are very many versions of this race where I feel like he gets a really, really good trip. So I'd want to have him on maybe some verticals for sure.
I do agree with you completely. And the fact also I wanted to mention about the Indiana race was they actually went fairly slow for those middle 2 quarters there. You can see the second quarter in that Indiana race was 26-1, which is nearing harness level of a quarter. So the fact that Jutland still closed into that and Casticiello held on really well, but Jutland ended up flying past him. That was the biggest thing for me too, because if he does get a setup in here, he could end up being very, very good down the stretch when a lot of these horses are tiring. But no, I mean, like I said, other than that, Empire of Glory looks slow on paper and is part of that pace scenario that I mentioned. Would be a surprise. Carlos Munoz brings out Smoles. Gavin Ashton hops aboard this horse, working well. However, again, one that's going to really have to drastically improve. Kid Charlemagne, we mentioned, is that really wild card type that you might have to watch the board. And then you have Tough Critic for George Weaver, who won very impressively at Keeneland first time out early in the spring, and then went to Ascot, did nothing, and came back very bad in the Skidmore. So it'll be very interesting to see how this horse comes back. Another one to look at the board for sure. And of course, the number 7 is Jutland. In the race number 5, which starts off the pick 6, Kitten's Joy Stakes. I'm going 7-5-1. Noah's going 5-1-7. Noah, let's move on to the next race. Is the Colonial Cup Stakes, 150,000 going a mile and a half on the inner turf, draws a field of 8. The only difference is that the biggest thing I would, if I was a gambling man, Noah, I would bet that the morning line favorite would not be in this race. The number 4, Truly Quality, who's carded with Axel Concepcion and Jonathan Thomas. However, that horse just ran at Del Mar this past week. So you would imagine this horse is going to be scratched, which of course throws all the odds into the morning lines up in the air for what these horses will be. As of right now, the first morning line choice, and again, I think they're also going to be very close. We'll see exactly how they shake out. But the morning lines to start off were 3-1, 7-2, 4-1, 5-1, and 9-2 in there too. So lots of very similar horses. But number 7, Twirling Point for Carmouche and Jonathan Thomas. Dear Dad, the number 5, Daniel Centeno for Mark Cassie at 9-2, and Just a Photo, Paco Lopez and Luis Ramirez. I'll put up our picks on the screen right now. Very similar. I'm going 7-5 again. Noah, you're going 7-3-2 in this race. So we're both on the same horse with the number 7, Twirling Point. I have a bunch of reasons why I like this one, and this one's going to be actually one of my stronger plays on the day. But I'd love to hear what you like about the number 7, Twirling Point, because it'll probably make me feel even better about this pick.
Well, I'm glad you've got a pretty strong opinion here because honestly, I had so many holes to poke in a lot of these horses, and I even have holes to poke in Twirling Point. I mean, the last time he ran was at Del Mar, and I just thought it was so weird because he had run in the Twilight Derby, he had run in the Hollywood Derby, and then Jonathan Thomas had him up for the claim for 80 last time, which I thought was just a huge red flag. Mm-hmm. He was kind of dead on the board. I think he was either 7-2 or 4-1 on the morning line. And then he was almost double that at post time, but then he actually ran okay. But I just get weird vibes from him. I have a feeling that Jonathan Thomas kind of saw this race on the calendar and kind of wanted to enter, one or the other. And he actually entered both, kind of, just trying to pick spots and see out the best races for his horses. And once Twirling Point ran, it kind of seems like, they got on the plane, shipped out here. So this was kind of the spot that they had. But I just, I just got weird vibes at the last one. I know I got him on top because based off of numbers, and especially his race last time, he's clearly the horse to beat. I guess the question for him would be whether he can stretch out to a 1.5 miles. But it seems like you could kind of ask that question for everybody. And that was kind of one of the other holes that I was poking at everybody. So it's just a really, really weird race. There are other races that I have stronger opinions, but I am glad that you do have this 7 on top.
And that's funny enough. That's why you mentioned that is the biggest hole you can poke in a lot of these horses, right? In this 1.5 miles, you don't know who wants to go in a 1.5 miles, but you look at Kitten's Point, which is, of course, a Kitten's Joy mare. Look at her track record here. She ran on the Dowager at Keeneland. She ran on the Wya at Saratoga. She ran on the Bewitch at Keeneland. Winner of 2 of those 3 races I just mentioned, and they're run at a 1.5 miles. The breeding is exceptionally there for the number 7 Twirling Point. And while she hasn't exactly run to that yet, I think that in a race where there's so many different horses that might not want this distance and don't have this breeding, I feel like Twirling Point is that standout. Also, you also have Kitten Mischief, who's a half to Twirling Point, of course, buy into Mischief. This is a horse that also ran at a 1.5 miles, won an allowance optional at Gulfstream Park going that distance, but then got switched to the Jack Fisher barn from Jonathan Thomas, who had the half sister, and who won at 2 1/8 miles on the flat. So this whole line only wants distance. The only thing I was saying was, like, does Twirling Candy progeny want the 1.25 miles and above? They win at 14%, granted smaller sample size, but still 9 for 63 on the win end. Again, that's sitting at 14%, and Turf Routes are more than fine, 16% on the win end in the progeny's career. So Twirling Point, just based on breeding, and again, like you said, Noah, a bunch of different holes to pick and others. He's obviously thought really highly of this horse before. Again, I get the heebie-jeebies from the last one, but by far ran his best race, and you'd imagine second time now, from 3 to 4, he might even be able to take another step forward. And even though Jonathan Thomas threw him in for the 80, I would not be surprised at all if he wins here, and then he can continue to be on, this type of 1.5 miles type division. So Twirling Point, just for all the reasons I mentioned, is why I have him on top and in one of my better plays of the day. Noah, you have the number 3, Just a Photo for Luis Ramirez. Paco Lopez hops aboard here. I actually don't have this horse anywhere. However, Warfront, Justify, I completely understand why this horse is in there for you.
Yeah, and there are pros and cons to this one. I mean, pros, he's pretty much got numbers that kind of compete with just about anybody in here. Cons, he's been running at Gulfstream pretty much his entire life, and his last couple of races obviously haven't been where the quality is the highest at Gulfstream.
Don't let Mr. South Beach hear that, dude.
I mean, you can't necessarily really fault him for running mid to high 80s buyers. And he was second in the stake last time. But a pro would be, I'd say he's kind of butted heads with Lorenz. He's actually a pretty decent turf horse for Saffy, and he's kind of always dominated, especially in those lower quality, but still like stakes caliber races at Gulfstream. The worry, I guess the biggest worry that I have was his race last time, because he kind of really didn't fire at all as the 3-2 favorite. And it was a little more worrisome just because you see in his PPs when he had run on the synthetic, he had actually done very, very well. And actually his buyer tops on the synthetic, if you go all the way back to June of last year. But he's been off for a little while. Maybe something happened. They're giving him some time. Paco hops on, which I think is a good sign. So there are things to like. And I feel like he's one that could maybe get a little bit lost just because you got the 2 Jonathan Thomases, you got a Cassie in here. So he might be a little disrespected on the board, and I think he's worth a shot.
Just connections wise, right? We talk about this all the time where, people recognize that Jonathan Thomas, they see Mark Cassie, that horse is going to be bet just based off that. And not too many people know Luis Ramirez, who's really, I think, only a Gulfstream, a South Florida guy, maybe ships up to Tampa like you see on the screen every once in a while, but mainly a South Florida guy. So the fact that Just a Photo's in here, and Paco hops aboard, who is still by far, I think, the winningest jockey in 2025. I think he's ahead on IRAD by like 50 races or 40 races or something ridiculous like that. So that obviously is something to take into consideration. I saw the breeding on this horse, Warfront, Justify. I completely understand why this horse is going to be tried at a 1.5 miles. But as Noah said, there's really just nothing on the page besides the buyer numbers that make me want this horse in this race. It's just the fact that again, 86, 87 to 88, there's obviously very good progression. The last time, as Noah mentioned, was just really bad. And the fact that he hasn't taken a step forward on the turf as he's getting older in age makes me a little bit concerned, because I feel like there's more upside for others in here. However, if no one like the 7 Twirling Point, if the Twirling Point doesn't improve off that last race and off the layoff, Just a Photo can absolutely run with them all. I just think there's more upside with others. Again, Truly Quality, you can see right there, August 30th, 25 at Del Mar, in the Del Mar handicap, where if you weren't there, Gold Phoenix won again. I know that's a shocker for everyone, considering I think he's won 4 in a row now at this point. Yep. But yeah, that was an interesting day, to say the least. But I would not imagine Truly Quality would run in this spot. I have the number 5 Dear Dad in second. I saw both Katie and Terry had this horse on top in the chat. Again, if you guys are here and new to the show, please comment in the live chat. If you're watching, we would greatly appreciate it. I just think Dear Dad could take the lead in this race. There's no speed at all. I know it's a mile and a half. It's going to be a complete jockey's race, as it always is with these long distance turf races. However, this is another one that has a ton of good numbers down at Gulfstream Park for Cassie, which is I honestly take that more as a negative than someone like Luis Ramirez always running at Gulfstream, because Cassie can run this horse anywhere, right? I mean, he could have run this horse at Saratoga, could run this horse at Woodbine, that Cassie loves to run at all the time, but chose to stay down at Gulfstream Park throughout the summer. Could argue it's just maybe a step below, but last time out of Colonial showed, even though with a slow pace, that this horse can handle the type of surface. Talking horse for course, you can see Table for 6 was a decent allowance horse out in New York at a mile or mile and a 16th. And turf routes, you see 9 for 12 in the money, and that is both from Dear Dad and Seat at the Table for Phil Antonacci. So some nice turf breeding. And Phil Antonacci actually did run this horse at a mile and 3/8, so you can see the intent there. I saw the intent maybe for the progeny, and if Dear Dad's just going to sit out there, maybe set 25 40, 25 50s, he can easily hang on for a piece. No, the only other horse we have in there is Desvio for Franklin Boyce and Madison Myers, a pretty much mainstay out on the East Coast in Maryland and Colonial out in Virginia. This is a horse that actually ran a really nice race in the dinner party, which was a it was a walking marathon is basically what it was. Tried a mile and a half in the Cape Henlopen, of course, losing to the best horse in the world. So I understand why you would lose that. That, of course, being my horse, guys, it's facetious. It is vote no, of course. Who runs this weekend, by the way, in the Kentucky Turf Cup at Kentucky Downs for $2.5 million. So please watch and cheer us on. We would greatly appreciate it. But this is one that's run good races in the past. No one going to be running late, and if any runs anything like that dinner party, can even be in the realm for the win in this race.
Yeah, and he took some serious money in the race at Delaware just off of that dinner party. So obviously somebody thought that he could stretch out to a mile and a half. Didn't quite work out that day. He was a little bit wide, and he was never beating the future Turf Cup winner anyways. So you can't really hold that against him. And then last time he was wide again. He lost to Two Next that winner, so I think that's a pretty decent race. Golden Eye came back and won. Dripping Cold was flying in that race and couldn't quite get there. But those are, pretty two decent horses. So I think he's just another one where in a race where there are a lot of fuzzies, why not give him another shot to stretch out to that marathon distance?
I agree with you completely. And the fact that, we both have him in third. No, I think that the Desvio, depending on the price, would be an ultimate try key, run really late type of horse. Just doesn't get there, but maybe, a withering third place or something like that, I feel like could be in the realm for Desvio. I'm going 7-5-2, and Noah's going 7-3-2 in the Colonial Cup, which is the second leg of the pick 6. Noah, we come to my favorite part of the day, my friend. Of course, we get back-to-back 5.5 turf sprints. And if you watch this show, you know how much I love those. I'm kidding. I don't. It is a field of 10 running for 125,000. Again, running that 5.5 furlong turf sprint distance. The morning line favorite is the number 8 Rogue Legend, Kendrick Carmouche, Wesley Ward, Foreign Shipper, 5-2 on the morning line. Would be even surprised if it is that. The number 4, Fear, is your second choice. Paco Lopez hops on. Jose D'Angelo trains 3-1 on the morning line. Your third choice is the number 6, Royal Testament, Eric Cancel, George Weaver, who Noah is going with. I'm going with the 8, Rogue Legend, for reasons I'll bring up in a second. No, I mentioned to you this before the show when I was putting the picks in. I had this horse on top the whole time. I really wanted to pick this horse. Then I saw some things, obviously, with Wesley bringing this horse here that made me think otherwise, but I love that you have this horse on top so we can at least represent one of us that has the balls enough to pick against Wesley Ward.
Yeah, I'm going with the filly against the boys. I kind of find it hard to believe that she's going to be 5-1 at post time. And I'm not actually sure who the morning line maker out there is at Colonial, but I can tell you what, she's not going to be anywhere close to 5-1. I mean, she's got an 80 buyer on the page with a 107 time form. Unless there's like a crazy, Ragazin or Thorograph number that makes that buyer supposedly supposed to be, 60 or 55 or whatever. There's no way you get 5-1 on this horse. I mean, I thought her race at Monmouth was very professional. She kind of just sat right off the lead, took over, and it was kind of a cakewalk from there. And I think the signs were there because Weaver decided to throw her in that Royal Palm Juvenile back in May. She drew the inside post, which once you don't get the lead on the inside, you're absolutely screwed. And she lost
to the eventual. I think the Lenny Lulu got second, right?
Yeah,
she won she got third in the Queen Mary. That's correct.
She was third at Ascot, and then I think BB Doll, who was second in that race, came back and ran an 8th, which I think was pretty respectable because I think it was they get big fields there all the time, so 8th is not too bad. But I'm going to go with her again, and I understand all the reasons why you would go with Rogue Legend. I have a few red flags that I'll bring up after you talk this horse up a little bit. But I'll let you have your glory.
Guys, look, man, we know how much I love these races. These races are so hard to grasp for me. You'll never see me play a best bet on these races unless I really feel like it was, and unless you pick a 3-1 Wesley Ward horse that you really like, and he ends up going off at 3-5, like it happened at Saratoga this past weekend. So I guess I could see something like that. But Rogue Legend, guys, coming over from Ascot, got a really nice third in the Windsor Castle Stakes. Havana Hurricane, I think is what it's Hurricane, yeah, at Ascot. That was still a very nice race. That was on the good to firm as well. I would assume Wesley Resolute went out and bought this horse to bring her to the States to catch that firm ground. Wesley Ward trains this horse who's been training down at Keelan. That last workout on the Keelan turf was very nice. If you go to Wesley Ward, guys, this is just the ridiculousness that Wesley Ward is on these stats here. And this is for the last 5 years. So you have foreign shippers, guys. So horse's first time in the States coming over from foreign races. You can see it's 12 for 34, 35% on the win end, 24 for 34 in the money. That's 71% with a positive ROI. Then you go to foreign shippers, but then you also go to turf. You just go to sprints. Let's just go to sprints for now. Goes up to 43%. That's 12 for 28, and 20 of those in the money with a $3.25 ROI. And it closes even from there, guys. If you go to turf, I think it cuts off like 2 of the starts that 11 for 24, 46% on the win end, and 75% of those in the money. It's just really hard to take into account. Kendrick picks up this Wesley Ward mount, where I'm sure you could have had any one of these horses in here working very well. As Charlie would say, that's the number one key for watching these Wesley Wards in here. The one is also another one of those. Just a lot of things to like, and it's hard to go against those stats. But no, again, I had the 6 on top the whole time. I'm glad that you have it on top. What did you think about red flags on this horse that you mentioned before?
I do have some reservations, but for all transparency, I think it's probably between the 6 or the 8. I don't really see anybody else winning the race. But I will raise you a stat. So go ahead and click on Wesley Ward and just go to Colonial itself, and you will see something pretty fascinating. So he has had, I believe it's 5. 5 runners, 0 for 5. Look at the prices on these horses.
Yep.
6-5, 2-1, 3-5. Look at that.
1-5,
That's
3-5.
pretty. And the best one was a second with a 42 buyer and a maiden 16 claimer. Now I know he's very, very good with 2-year-olds, turf sprints, yada yada
I was
yada.
gonna say, and also I guess the thing to point out there is none of these are for any stakes races, correct?
Yes.
They're all. I guess the one thing you could point into, right, is this optional claimer 100,000, which is a very nice purse on that day. It was Colonial, it was Million Weekend. It wasn't, but still, it's a great stat to bring out
Yes.
too, even though it's a small size.
I think you got to look at it both ways because he's probably not brought a horse of this caliber over before. I mean, he's only had 5 runners. They haven't been in very good races.
Right.
I watched some of his works. I know I watched the 16th, the 23rd, and the 30th. The ones on the 16th and the 23rd, I wasn't a huge fan of. The one on the 30th, I thought was much improved. He kind of looked like a different horse. And he had been working with some pretty decent horses too. I think he worked with Longstrider, who won impressively at Churchill in the spring. So just some positives and negatives with just about anybody. But to be fair, I really thought it was 6 or 8 and just, ended up landing on the filly.
I think you're completely right there. This is one for Wesley, Gypsy Art on the inside, Victor Espinoza, who's basically only been riding for Wesley at this point throughout this year. But he's working lights out the last 3 times at Saratoga. I don't like that he's drawn the rail, especially with these 2-year-olds on the rail. Not my cup of tea. However, I understand. The 3 I also thought was interesting, who ran in the Royal Palm Juvenile that Noah mentioned before. However, ran in the juvenile race, not the juvenile fillies race, which Noah's top pick ran in. However, came back after that at Gulfstream about a month later and won very impressively. Has been working at Colonial 5 for the last month and a half now. They've been pointing to this spot specifically, so this is also one I definitely wouldn't throw out unless you're going to single the 8 or single the 6. If in either one of those miss, your pick 5 is going to go absolutely, or your pick 6 will be going astronomical. Noah, the only horse we'll talk about is number 2, Mr. Randy, Tim Gurton, Gavin Ashton. This horse you have in 3rd and think could surprise, at least in the money, for a little bit of a price.
Yeah, well, I kind of want to go off of what you were saying, just because it seems like one of those races where you kind of got to make a decision, right? And the decision that I've kind of made is that if one of the speedballs that ran in one of those merry-go-round races at Gulfstream, like the 3 or the 4, end up outbreaking the field and winning this race, that's something that I can't control. So if one of those 2 win, then I'm most likely out of any horizontal bets. And horizontal bets are basically any kind of bets I make. But with that being said, I know those 2 are pretty fast. I think the 8's pretty fast from what I've seen. There's some other somewhat speedy rivals to the outside. I think the 2 is maybe one that could pick up some pieces. I know got rained off last time, but obviously intended for the turf. This is just a goofy gelding. And which is makes sense why they gelded him so early. I mean, they gelded him and he hadn't even run, but just super goofy. Was wide. He almost like made a right hand turn around the far turn and then kind of re-engaged. Got a little like leg weary late, but then when the rival came to him, he kind of re-engaged. So it was quite the interesting race for sure. As we lost Kyle, and I thought I needed to host Bettin N Boozin for a second, but we're good.
No, it's my fault. My apologies to everyone out there. Have that same type of thing every now and again where it just seems like cuts out for one quick second and then comes back. So my apologies, everyone. As Noah finished up on Mr. Randy there, we're going to move on to the next race. Anyway, I'm going 8-6-1 in the Rosie Stakes. Noah's going with 6-8-2. Guys, moving on to the race before the Old Dominion Oaks and Old Dominion Derby. It's the Haas. 150,000. Guess what, guys? It's another turf sprint. I love it so much here. It's another 150,000. This is 5.5 on the outer turf again, but this one is again. Actually, no, this one's again but it's for the older males. As I bring the screen back up, you can see it'll be a field of 9. The morning line favorite is the talented number 5, Witty, Pennsylvania bred for Rodriguez and Merriman, 2-1 on the morning line. The number 9, Allegon's your second choice, Paco Lopez at 5-2, and your third choice is the number 4, the ultra quick Don Show, Jaime Torres, Michelle Lovell at 9-2. Noah, putting our picks up on the screen right now. I'm saying 3 top ones again. However, you can see that I'm going with the number 9 Allegan, knowing you're going with the number 5 Witty. And this is one that, again, Witty is one of those horses that either gets there really quick or it's going to need something to, need to go right. And hopefully it's going to be one or the other for you.
Yeah, he's one that, he's always going to be pace compromised, right? A lot of times he'll need things to go his way. You kind of saw that in the turf sprint at Pimlico, where they just went crazy up front and won that race pretty handily. And in the Harvey Pack, things didn't go his way. I know it was, sub 21-3, but at that point in time, that was July 4th weekend. And I think that was at a point where the turf was pretty speedy. Bring the band home, just wired him and crushed that field. And he couldn't really do too much about it. And he came back at Colonial, which I think if he's going to be a pretty tough favorite, it's probably here at Colonial, because I know he won impressively last time from way out of it. And then he had ran a really nice second in that same race last year, which is actually a race that we covered because the worst favorite of all time, Mischief Magic from the Charlie Appleby barn, was like 3-5 in that race. I absolutely hated him, but didn't have the winner that day, so it didn't do me any good.
Yeah.
But was really good in that race, was really good in this race this year. And again, just seems like a course where if he gets speed in front of him with those really, really wide turns, I think it's going to really suit him well.
Yeah, no, I easily could. This is just one of those horses, Noah, especially in these 5.5s that I always have trouble putting on top, just because he needs so much for him to go right in order for him to win this race. However, ran last time at Colonial, you mentioned, won the Van Cleef, and I never thought he was getting there. And the fact that he actually got up was insane to me. So it's definitely one that easily has a chance to win in this race. But again, a horse that I have really hard time putting on top, especially in this race where it doesn't seem like there's going to be a whole lot of pace, which for these races is actually a little bit interesting to see. You see the 4 Doncho up top, 4 Harp, and Mr. One of the horses we talked about in the past, does like to be near the lead, not necessarily on lead, even though he did win last time on the lead. You'd see my horse that I have on top right behind, and that is the number 9 Allegan. And that's a horse I just think is going to sit a really nice trip in here. Granted, has he run the best races, winning races as of recently? No, he hasn't. But look what he's running against, right? I mean, one of the turf sprint favorites as of right now, barring any European invaders and bring the band home. Then you got AG Bullet, who came back to win another race at Kentucky Downs. Again, I didn't see what actually she got for that race. I know it's probably something ridiculous, another 98. So again, no shame in losing to that. And the fact that Allegan was only 2 lengths behind AG Bullet could say something in there, of course, in the grade 1 Jaipur on Belmont weekend at Saratoga. So just a ton of really good company to bring in. Our Allard has really campaigned him very well. And the fact that if he runs another race around that 95, it could be very hard, especially with the trip I expect Allegan to have just sitting right behind in the first flight, which is what he's had, the last bunch of times he's run. He's very tactical and makes his own trip. It's one of these horses, Noah, that almost like Nest used to be back in the day, right? Where she gets perfect trip after perfect trip. However, just that nice tactical speed, especially from an outside gate, can just make that trip for you almost every single time. And if she sits second flight, or he sits second flight, I'll take a drink for that. He sits second flight. I think he's going to be pretty tough. Obviously, you think he has a good chance to run well as well. You have him in third.
I do. This is just one of those races where you would almost want to reevaluate about, 5 steps out of the gate, because I don't think it's any secret that Doncho is the speed of the speed. It's just a question of, whether he gets pressed from the 2 to the inside. 4 Harp shown some speed, but came from off of it last time. And then the horse that you were talking about, Mr. or MM or whatever, when he was 3 and 4, he was super speedy. And then it seemed like as time went on and he got older and older and father time kind of caught up, he kind of lost his speed. And then last time at Ellis, I don't care how fast that turf course is. He goes sub 21, just keeps going on the front end. I mean, if he shows that speed, it's really, really going to help set things up for the 5 and the 9. But if he doesn't, I mean, I couldn't tell you what he's going to do in this race.
I agree.
And Carmouche is on top, so maybe he will show some speed, because obviously Carmouche has kind of got that speedy resume. But for our sake, I hope he does speed it up, because if he does and makes the 4 work, I think the 5 and the 9, one of them.
I agree, and I just like the 9 more because, again, Woody coming from the absolute, basically running from Narnia to try and run down as he always does. Allegon's going to get the jump on him. And if Allegon runs as well as he has in the past, I think it might be hard to catch him down the stretch. The only other horse we have in there, Noah, is Doncho. Again, super speedy last time at Ellis Park. You mentioned it. The cold denoted pace figure running 21-3 and 43-1 is kind of wild to see. However, has run good races in the past. Granted, they've been on dirt, however, but he's by far the fastest one out of the gate, at least in theory. And if he gets to and if Mr. Doesn't go with him or anything, even if he does, I think he still has a good chance to finish somewhere in the money. But if he gets a nice lead, it could be hard to catch him.
Yeah, he scares me, and I think you should be scared anytime you look over at the comments and it doesn't say anything about the trip. It just says new course record.
That's true.
I don't really see that as a race kind of out of nowhere, because he kind of did some similar stuff when he was 3 on the dirt. And then the 2 races before that, you were kind of wondering where that form had gone. Then he came back and just fired a huge effort. So, if he comes back and does something similar to that, they could all be running for second in here.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, I didn't even notice that. To be funny, I kind of overlooked that, I guess, a little bit. But yeah, I didn't even see just a new course record on the side rather than any type of trip notes or anything like that. Nope, it's just 3 words, new course record, which honestly is pretty tough. It's pretty hard, to be completely honest with you. But into Haas, guys, we have the same top 3. I'm going 9-4-5. Noah's going 5-4-9. As we get into the very nice races on the day, guys, the Old Dominion Oaks and the Old Dominion Derby, what we're all here for 3-year-olds on the turf, guys. We have a good amount of people watching. If you guys are watching and enjoying the show, please go down below the video player, hit the like button and hit the subscribe button. We would greatly appreciate it, because again, not only does it show us you guys are enjoying the podcast, but it also pushes these videos out onto YouTube to hopefully bring more people over to the HHH Racing Podcast. And of course, for that, we thank you. Noah, let's get right into the Old Dominion Oaks. Again, race number 9, 250 on the line, 1 1/8 mile on the inner turf. Draws a field of 10, with the morning line favorite being the number 7, Evershed, for Dylan I think, is it Dylan Centeno? I'm so Daniel because I corrected myself last time and I said Dylan the first time again. Daniel Centeno, I think you are right. Arnaud Delacour trains 2-1 morning line, the second choice all the way to the outside. Number 10, Will Then, another Jonathan Thomas horse for Jaime Rodriguez, 7-2 morning line, third choice to the inside. Number 3, Sigh No More, 5-1 on the morning line. Axel Concepcion, Brendan Walsh. Noah, going with the other Brendan Walsh, the number 1, Something About Her. And I'm going with the number 7, Evershed, you have in second. Noah, I know I'm kind of chalking out here. I have a couple opinions underneath, but it's either going to be, it feels like one of these days it's going to be either really chalky or it's just going to be all over the place. You went with the number 1. So again, you're hoping for that ladder. This is a horse I gave a long look to. And for that last race alone, going a mile on the Woodbine turf course, which of course is weird as it gets, ran a nice race behind Candy Quest. Lots of things to like here, especially for what seems to be an improving 3-year-old filly.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people will lean towards a 7 or use the 2 coming out of the Saratoga Oaks, the race that Laurelin won. Because I think Laurelin's pretty good, but I don't think she's like super over the top. I know she's undefeated, but that was a 6-horse field, and I'm just not sure I really trust those 2. And in a weird way, it almost kind of feels like if Walsh had a little more confidence in the 3, the 1 wouldn't necessarily be in this race. With that being said, I feel like the 1, Something About Her, has always been pretty well meant, just because she won second time out, first time on the turf. And then Walsh threw her in some really, really tough races as a 2-year-old. She was at Kentucky Downs. She lost to Mayday Ready there, and then lost to her again in the Jessamine. I know the Jessamine was a pretty good field. We saw Mayday Ready. She ran second to Lake Victoria in the Juvenile Phillies turf last year. Destino d'Oro was on the sidelines for a while, but then came back at Churchill in the spring and was super good when she came back after that long layoff. And then they kind of just sent her up to Turfway and Woodbine, and maybe she just doesn't love the synthetic. I know she's kind of bred a little bit for the turf. She's out of a Ghost Apper mare, which typically they like the turf. I'm not super sure about her synthetic stats, but got her back onto the turf at Woodbine, pops a career best, which was not necessarily out of nowhere, but you had seen some steady progression ran second to Candy Quest, who we had seen in the spring and kind of the winter at Gulfstream, and she's a decent 3-year-old filly. I think that was her best. I think she ran a 88 or 89 in that race. So I don't know. I'm just kind of taking a flyer. It's kind of similar to the one in the first leg that we talked about, where she's a little bit of a grindy type, but it just seems like she's going to get a pretty good trip regardless, and she might be able to get that pocket, maybe get the first jump on the 3 and the 7. We'll see.
Yeah, I think that's a very good way to put it. And like I said, I give this horse a very long look just because of that last race. And I thought she ran very well in that race. Candy Quest just ran, I thought, huge in that race to be able to come all the way from the back with Cavacci atop after running second to Laura Lynn again that we mentioned before. It's just one of those horses that I feel like either runs really big or kind of runs another, like, it's almost like I have to see it again type horse for me. Granted, you're going to get paid to find out. And I do agree with you about the 3 that if she was as good as you think she'd be, why is Walsh entering another one in here? But again, I think Sino More is actually, I actually like that last race before the Saratoga Oaks at Monmouth. So I'm willing to give her one more chance at horses that I assume are going to be very similar in price. The number 7 Evershed, guys. This is one that really was not bet, and for good reason. She didn't really have the numbers, but I thought she ran very well in the Saratoga Oaks. And you could argue again, like Noah has, that maybe this just wasn't a race that you maybe want anyone out of besides Laura Lynn. I actually really liked the number 1 Opulent Restraint that day. I thought she was going to go straight to the lead, and then I ended up getting beat out for the lead. And then I'm like, right here, I'm like, oh, it's just fantastic. And then ends up running absolutely nothing. And Laura Lynn runs an absolute hole in the wind. I'll skip to the end of the race, guys. You can see Laura Lynn right here, giving the good old Paco look back. Evershed's actually going to follow her. And the only concern I have with her is the fact that she doesn't really kick in until late. And this is a mile and 3/16. This is an extra 16th of a mile than what they'll have on Saturday at Colonial. So that's the only thing that gives me a little bit of a concern, but she almost like re-engages there at the end, right? She sees the 3 coming to her inside and almost ends up re-engaging. When she does, she actually runs very nicely. And Bobby Flay's horse is right there. She's just the outside of that gallop out. You can't really see her in the screen, but that is her snout there. So I think she actually ran a lot better than what some people would consider that she ran. And if Laura Lynn really is the goods, this will be 3rd off the layoff, which you would imagine she has the right to continue to improve throughout her 3-year-old year. And Arnaud Delacour has really campaigned his horse as well at Colonial this year. So again, for all those reasons I mentioned, this is a lower priced horse. However, this is my other horse. I'm just giving away my best bets throughout the entirety of the show, but this is the one horse also kind of like flatten the curve a little way where it is a lower priced horse. However, I feel like she has the most upside and best way to take out this type of 1 1/8 distance as opposed to others in here. So Evershed is going to be another decent play for me on Saturday. Noah, we kind of touched on a little bit with the 3 Sino More. She ran 6th out of 6 in that Saratoga Oaks last time out. However, was a little bit farther back than I think she not necessarily likes to be, because she still likes to close. However, maybe she's just not that type of, horse. And if she gets back to this type of field, I think she at least has a good shot to run in the money.
No, and I kind of saw the same thing as you, because I was very impressed with a late kick that she showed back at Monmouth, where she actually beat Pretty Lavish, who I guess was maybe a little bit better at the time. She's kind of gone by the wayside. And then last time, I know you kind of see the improvement in the buyers and the figures, but just visually, she just kind of lagged behind. Wasn't super involved that day. Maybe you can see a little bit more of an improvement today. And it was just one where she was actually lower. She was 8-1 in that race versus the 7 Evershed, which I guess for good reason. She'd only run 3 times, whatever. She was almost double the price. So it's kind of one of those yin yang situations where do you want to take 5 on the 7 when the 3 was lower than her, and you can kind of get 9-2. It's just one of those decisions that you have to make as a bettor.
I agree with you completely. And obviously we'll see how that form shapes out. No one has come back to run yet out of that race yet until Evershed and Sino More run on Saturday. So it'll be interesting to see how that Saratoga Oaks holds up. But again, if like you said, it's exactly the yin and yang situation where depends on what odds you want to take on either, or the fact that you're getting 2-1 on a horse that again was 14-1 last time out, and you're getting 5-1 morning line on a horse that was 8-1 last out. You can completely see the discrepancy there. So I agree with you. I'm going to try and ride with that Saratoga Oaks, although again, there's a lot of upside other places. I think the only other horse I want to talk about quick is the second choice, number 10, Will Then, horse coming over out of the Del Mar Oaks for Jonathan Thomas. Jaime Rodriguez hops aboard here. I thought she ran okay in the Del Mar Oaks. Wasn't necessarily anything spectacular, but I thought at least Lush Lips and Thought Process were two of the best West Coast. Lush Lips shipped in, but Thought Process definitely the best West Coast turf filly, at least going into that race. Obviously, I thought she ran really well that day too, but that was just a tough field, I think, and I think you're getting a lot easier here. So if you like Will Then, I think she's definitely worthy of taking a shot at 7-2. It's just a matter of she really hasn't run her type of race since the China Doll. And even the China Doll is still a slow enough time to where she might not even be competitive in here with some of these others. She just has to take a step forward, and at what's going to be, second choice, that's hard to justify for me to be able to take her on the win end. But it can completely see the angle where people do end up liking her. And again, there's just a bunch of other ways you can go in here. A lot of long shots that make somewhat of sense to at least run in the money, but I feel like it could just be a clear cut top two, or again, a bunch of chaos can ensue. In the Old Dominion Oaks, I'm going 7-3-10. Noah's going 1-7-3. Noah, let's move into the feature on the entire day. The Grade 3 Old Dominion Derby. It's 500,000, a mile and an eighth on the outer turf course for 3-year-old males. Draws another field of 9. So a bunch of decent field sizes for this card. And the morning line favorite, as I bring it up on the screen, is the number 6 World Beater for Jaime Torres and Riley Mott. Second choice being the number 5 Iron Hand, the Florida bred Edwin Gonzalez, comes up for Jose D'Angelo. 5-1 on the morning line. Your third choice is shared between the number 4 Soleil Volant, Kendra Carmouche, and Graham Motion, and the number 9 Outrunner, Paco Lopez, Jorge Duarte. Noah, no shocker here. We're both going with the number 6 World Beater. However, I have a nice price underneath that I want to spend some time talking about. Again, there's nothing too extravagant to say. World Beater, the Grade 1 winner last time out, Grade 1 placed. 2 back, just one of those horses that if he continues to take the national progression will be pretty tough in here.
Yeah, you can make a pretty good argument that he might be one of the more likely winners in the 6 races that we've talked about tonight. I understand the 9-5. I think he's going to be a lot lower than that. I could see him being close to even money, maybe even 4-5. Just because I thought his Saratoga Derby was pretty good, and you can see kind of the constant progression where once they put him on the turf and kind of stretched him out in distance, things just got better and better after every start. He was second behind Test Score. He beat Luther that day, who came back and won. And then last time, obviously, was very, very impressive and struck that upset at 11-1. That was a fantastic ride by Junior that day, by the way. But you can just kind of see, it was kind of his coming out party because he had run in some nice 3-year-old turf races, but he kind of hadn't run in those top of the line, like the ones that who's the Chad that got DQ'd and Pratt got days for, but
Zulu Kingdom.
Yeah, Zulu Kingdom. Like he wasn't in some of those races. So he was maybe a little bit of a lesser quality, but then he kind of proved that he kind of fit right with the bunch last time. So he's just getting better and better. I guess the one worry for him would be if you have questions about pace in any of the first 5 races that we talked about. This pace could go a several number of ways.
Yes.
I think your 7 might be close and show some aggression. I've got the 4, who I'm hoping is going to go to the lead and hopefully take them the whole way. So I think that would maybe be if you're trying to nitpick and make some cases against him. But I think he's going to be really tough in here.
Just if he gets any type of trip any type of winning trip for him, you'd imagine that this race will be very, very tough with World Beater. in it. Of course, a grade 1 winner being in the Old Dominion Derby is probably not something a lot of these connections thought of when they ended up entering for this card. Noah, I'll let you talk first and I'll round out here. You have the number 9 Outrunner in second, who I have in third. And you also have the number 4 Soleil Volant, 2 of the middling prices in there. So please feel free, end out your top 2, and then I'll add on and then we'll move on to best bets.
Yeah, I thought Outrunner was a little interesting because it seems like in a lot of his races, and pretty much all of them, he's just been chasing slow paces. This could be another case where that is something that happens. But it could also be where Paco is a little more aggressive and he's a little more kind of intact with the field, so he doesn't have to do so much. And I think Paco would be aggressive just because A, there's not a ton of speed, and B, he draws the far outside post. So I feel like if you're a backer of the 9 Outrunner, he would kind of hope that that's the case, and Paco gets him a little more involved on Saturday. And then, like I said, I've got Soleil Volant in third, basically primarily because he's actually got the fastest early time form fig of a 92, which, I mean, you don't see a ton. Maybe you see in some marathon races, but I mean, 8.5, 9 furlong races, you rarely see that. Kendrick hops aboard. Obviously, I talked about he's a little more aggressive. He's been one where he's been close to paces, but not necessarily on top. I know he was kind of way out of it last time, and that was kind of a no chance trip with the way that he was ridden that day. No disrespect to Tyler. He's very, very good, but the way that he was ridden and him being 13 lengths back, he had absolutely no chance. I feel like they're going to flip the script, maybe show some aggression into him, and if he gets brave on the lead, I think he's got a big shot.
I completely agree with you. I thought this horse was actually really interesting to have this horse being the best early time form, but again, has been aggressive early in his career as a 2-year-old. So maybe can show some of that again. If not, definitely won't be far off of it at all. I really actually like 13 Colonies in here to kind of be a little bit of an upset horse in this race. Phil Antonacci trains this horse. Axel Concepcion hops aboard this one. This was a horse that was actually well touted by us. I know I picked that horse on top in what was a very tough Keeneland meet for me in the spring. So having a 7-2 winner was like, oh my hallelujah moment to me, and especially to win by 4 1/4 after what again had been a pretty tough meet. I thought he ran super that day, visually wise, then ran at the Pine Ridge, completely crossed that one off the page. This horse does not want any part of the dirt as shown from where he finished in that race, but then came back at Saratoga a month later and ran a very good race behind Simulate, who, which that was Simulate's coming out party in that race, who I then liked a lot coming back at the Secretariat at Colonial, then came back to run. Not everyone likes Kentucky Downs. So you can almost throw that one out as well. But I just thought if this one gets, if Soleil Volant does go and he sits right off, or if he just takes the lead as Ricardo Santana took him to do last time, I think if he slows the pace down with a race that doesn't have a whole lot of speed in it, he could absolutely wire this field in what would be a shock to a lot of people. However, a progressing 3-year-old with a little bit muddied up form in the middle there with the Pennine Ridge, I think this horse could really surprise at a decent price of what shows at 10-1 on the morning line. And I'll play him in doubles. I'd have him in horizontals just for the sole fact of the pace scenario. And I feel like he's a little bit better than what he's been showing in the past. And again, Noah talked about Outrunner. In the Old Dominion Derby, I'm going 6-7-9. Noah's going 6-9-4. Noah, as I actually have a pick to make in a draft here, I will let you talk about your best bets. I just drafted Justin Urban like an idiot. Your this is for the LA man to my right. Race 5, you have a win on the number 5, JJ Gray, and race 7, a win on the number 6, Royal Testament. And taking a play out of my book, 2 simple win bets for the people.
Well, the play out of your book, like I said, would be to capitalize the horses that I'm betting on. So I made sure I did that for you. I follow the rules when I'm not on my own show. But JJ Gray, I'm really hoping that they don't go to Kentucky Downs because I do like him a lot in that spot. He's 5-2 on the morning line. I'm hoping I get somewhere around that. And the Kelsey horse that you like a little bit, I'm sure will probably take some money. So I would figure they'd be vying for favoritism. But like I said earlier, Thought he was a pretty convincing winner last time. Been working well since then, and just seems like a logical spot for him to take another step forward. And then the second spot play is to or the best bet is to Royal Testament, who's the filly taking on the boys in the first of 2 turf sprints that we talked about, where I thought her race last time was pretty good. And she ran a respectable number. It was an 80 buyer, came back at 107 time form. It's just one of those races where it seems like it's either her or the Euro Rogue Legend for Carmouche and Wesley. And if they go crazy for Wesley, I think you can maybe get a decent number on her. So I know you love your turf sprints, but I'm going to 1 and 2 in that category.
I was going to say, like me in the 2 win bets, not like me to put 1 in the turf sprint. But of course, Noah, good luck with your best bets. We'll be obviously together on Saturday. So I will cheer you on because for once we don't have best bets in the same races. And of course,
I won't be cheering you on.
And well, yeah, thanks, dude. Appreciate that. And I was going to make a joke that even when Patrick's not here, I still lose best bet right away. I don't even win because Katie still gave it to you. I don't even win anything. I can I'm never on top unless, I win at Kentucky Downs and all of a sudden, everyone gives me praise for once because I actually won something. In race number 6, guys, my first win bet is on the number 7 Twirling Point. I kind of already gave away my best bets as we went through the show, but with the breeding, the intent, a lot of things are going its way for the number 7 Twirling Point in race number 6, which is that 1.5 mile marathon race. There's even with the morning line favorite out, I think you'll still get a pretty decent price. I'm hoping for 5-2, 3-1. I think is still very valid for this horse because I think there's a bunch of others that will still end up taking money in that race. So going with the number 7 Twirling Point on a win bet in race number 6. And in race number 9, I originally just had the number 7, whose name is escaping my mind right now, but we talked about it a lot. I originally just had Evershed as a win bet. However, 2-1, I'm worried I might not get the price I want, so I'm willing to take her in a double with World Beater, who just looks to be the class. I'm hoping to get somewhere around 6, 7, 8-1 on that double, and then I'm going to play definitely at 6, 7. You know what it is, but 6, 7. But but I also talked about why I like 13 Colonies so much, and God forbid that horse wins, and I will not be cashing money on that horse that I gave out as a long shot, probably long shot of the entire day for me of this sequence with the number 7, 13 Colonies. So we'll definitely be including at least a little bit of a small double, being that the 7-7 starting race number 9, but the big double will be 7-6 with World Beater in the Old Dominion Derby. My friend, even though we didn't have Patrick, I still feel like we brought it up and kept the conversation up a little bit, as we all do when you're on this show. We like to give a little bit of shit every now and again, but that's of course why we love doing what we do. Bettin N Boozin, never losing. A little bit more fun than the show you got on Thursday and Tuesday nights, but that's why you're always coming back. But always appreciate it, man. And again, it should be a really nice sequence on Saturday, as well as the fantastic sequence that is Kentucky Downs on Saturday.
Oh, I'm so looking forward to that. I can't wait for these 2 days I had a short week in school, obviously, with the Monday off for Labor Day, but it already seems like this week of school is going by too slow. I need these next 2 to go by fast, and then we can live it up in Kentucky Downs.
At open bar, yeah, it might be an issue, especially after we win the Kentucky Turf Cup. Then it's really going to be an issue. But of course, guys, as we mentioned, we are both Noah and I will be at Kentucky Downs this weekend. If you guys are going, please feel free to DM me, or Noah for that matter, but DM me on Twitter or X at AP Roscoe K, and would love to meet up with you guys, have a beverage, do whatever, watch some races together, talk. And also, I'm going to put up these picks as well as my Kentucky Downs picks for this weekend, also on X. So please give me a follow over there. I do it every single time I bet a track. I will always put up selections for those. But of course, that wouldn't be possible without you guys. There's a big show tomorrow, guys. So if you guys are watching this live, it's on Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern with Howard, Pete, and Paul on Picks and Ponies. Not only are they covering that aforementioned Kentucky Downs sequence, they're also holding a big fundraiser for the Cody's Wish Monument that's going into the Kentucky Horse Park. We're looking to aim a certain amount to have the HHH Racing Podcast name on the plaque. So if you feel you have, extra money, feel generous, please consider donating. It's a fantastic cause, and the monument looks unbelievable. It's a very touching monument for what's been a very touching story for horse racing. So please come on by. Again, that's tomorrow night, Thursday, September 4th at 8 p.m. Eastern with Picks and Ponies. And don't forget, of course, after that, come on by for Pacific Horseplayers to cover the closing weekend, Saturday, late pick 5, correct, Noah? At Del Mar, if I'm not mistaken. So big shows tomorrow, but it will be a ton of fun tomorrow night. Guys, until next time, for my co-host, Noah Maher, this has been your host, Kyle Roscoe, in episode 146 of Bettin N Boozin on the HHH Racing Podcast, covering the ALL STAKES Pick6 for Old Dominion Derby Day at Colonial Downs for September 6th. And until next time, everyone, crush those bets, win those photos, and stay safe, everyone. We'll see you in the next one. Have a good night.